Hello, welcome to الكرامة News Service. Happy New Year. That's our time for top stories for today, and we start with latest developments in Libya. Parliament member Ibrahim Amish said that the Libya needed to have a national formula to be agreed upon to build the country. During a news conference included a parliament delegation and notables of the eastern region in Tripoli airport, Amish said that the national unity government must be protected in the capital, not an exiled government. Amish stressed that UN envoy Martin Kobler and the United Nations want the destruction of Libya by the agreement which signed in Sikhirat, adding that they don't want for Libya to become a country such as Iraq and others. Media advisor for Parliament Speaker Fathi Abdul Karim Al-Mariam said that Parliament Speaker Agila Saleh Gwader and a number of Parliament members had received the head of the Arab Parliament Ahmed Al-Jarawan at Bragg Airport and held a meeting in Susa. The meeting included a number of Parliament members, including Dr. Abdel Salam Nasiya, Libya's representative in the Arab Parliament, and Prime Minister Mr. Abdullah Thani. The meeting discussed the situation in Libya topped by the political agreement and recent reactions. During the meeting, Al-Jarawan underlined his support for the Libyan legitimacy represented in Parliament and its institution. The United Nations envoy to Libya Martin Kobler denied any amendment of Sikhirat agreement signed in Morocco to resolve the Libyan crisis, noting that there is a time bound for applying the terms of agreement signed by all parties. This came during a press conference held in Tripoli. During the press conference, Kobler stressed that the political agreement is the basis for discussions and that there is no parallel initiatives except for initiatives that are sponsored by the United Nations. Moreover, he noted that he seeks to involve all Libyan parties in Sikhirat agreement to support a Sarraj government. During the conference, Kobler declaimed that the Presidential Council and the government emanating from the agreement are the only legitimate entity in Libya. And still a Libya member of the outgoing Congress, Abdulrahman Iswahili, introduced his observations and reservations of the political agreement signed in Sikhirat during a meeting with the UN envoy to Libya Martin Kobler in Tripoli. Iswahili noted that the meeting dealt with the political agreement and means of solving the Libyan crisis peacefully, pointing out that he introduced his reservations and his remarks on the agreement as well as the necessary steps to include these reservations in the agreement in order to succeed. During a press conference, Kobler said at the end of his tour in Tripoli that he will not allow to make any further changes to Sikhirat political agreement. And still Libya Parliament member Siham Jiriwa Sirjua stressed that the security arrangements or the reception of the national unity government in Tripoli has already begun. However, she said that the government may start its work from Ghadames or another city in the south until the completion of these arrangements. She added that Parliament will authorize the national unity government after the return of the Paykuters without revealing the date of their return. The political agreement signed in Moroccan city of Sikhirat provides that the Parliament should authorize the government during 28 days. On to Benina area, terrorist groups renewed the targeting of Benina area in Benghazi with 10 rockets wounding 3 civilians including a child. Terrorist groups always target Benina area by continued shells, the matter that forces the interim government to declare it as a disaster area and order their competent authorities to take the necessary steps in accordance with applicable legislation. Prime Minister Abdullah Thani held the visit of the President of the Arab Parliament Ahmed Al-Jarawan to the Libyan city of Susa. Thani noted that this visit reflects the support of the Arab people to the will of the Libyan people to build a state of institutions. Moreover, he stressed that banning the arming of armed forces increases the suffering of the people in the light of the expansion of terrorist groups supported by foreign countries. In the meantime, Thani called on the international community to arm the armed forces and support them in the fight against terrorism. And now, my audience, we transfer to the Arab arena and our news now from Palestine. Hundreds of men attended a mass funeral procession in the West Bank city of Hebron today to bury 17 Palestinians killed during attack on Israel in recent weeks. The crowd carried the bodies on stretchers wrapped in Palestinian flags and covered with flowers through the street of Hebron, waving flags and chanting, "God is great." Israel transferred 23 Palestinians' bodies to Palestinian towns and villages across the West Bank. Other than the 17 bodies received at Hebron's hospital, one was received in Nablus, 2 in Silwad, and 1 more in the Palestinian village of Aurora. Since the start of October, Israeli forces or army civilians have killed at least 132 Palestinians, 82 of whom authorities described as assailants or claiming as assailants. Most of others have been killed in clashes with security forces. The surge in violence has been fueled by Palestinian frustration over Israel's 48-year occupations of land. They seek for an independent state and the expansion of settlements in those territories which were captured by Israel in 1967 Middle East War. And now we transfer to Iraq. More than 50 families being used as human shield by terrorist Daesh militants in Ramadi were evacuated by the Iraqi military. About 700 extremist Daesh militants are expected to be hiding in the center and eastern outskirts of Ramadi days after Iraqi forces claimed victory over the militants in the western city. According to the U.S.-led coalition, an official from the Iraqi counter-terrorism unit said the families will be taken to a secure location. Soldiers escorted groups of men, women and children, some of them disabled and elderly, into vehicles. The army's apparent capture of Ramadi in the Euphrates River Valley west of Baghdad marks a milestone for the forces. Since the initial loss of the town, Iraq's armed forces had operated mainly in supporting role beside Shiite Muslim militias and U.S. airstrikes. And now, my audience, will transfer to the PKK crisis in Turkey. 2 police officers or soldiers and 12 Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK fighters were killed in Turkey's southeast in the space of 48 hours in operations to push back the militant group, the army and the Dogan News Agency reported. The violence has painted a grim landscape for the region. In the district of Siza, government tanks could be seen firing on buildings thought to be holding the PKK separatists. In the city of Diyarbakir, deserted and snowy streets sat silent the night prayer, the calm punctuated by sporadic weapons fire and explosions over its skyline. The army said the soldier who died came under rocket fire in Siza, when 12 PKK militants also died in the ongoing military operations. Turkey's predominantly Kurdish southeast has blown back into some of its worst violence since the 1990s after a 2-year ceasefire between the PKK and the state collapsed in July. And now to Afghanistan. Afghan security forces released 59 people from a Taliban prison in a special military operations in the country's southern province of Helmand, the Ministry of Defense said today. The individuals freed from Taliban custody included 37 government soldiers, 7 policemen and 15 civilians, according to the ministry. They had been held in a prison in Nahri Saraj district north of Helmand's capital. The operation comes after government troops redoubled their efforts to drive back the insurgents who have seized several districts in Helmand over the past few months. Afghan Defense Ministry spokesman Dawlat Waziri said that the government operations against the Taliban in Helmand is ongoing and that a 4-way meeting aimed at jump-starting peace talks with the insurgents will be held on January 11. Waziri also urges the militants to withdraw their forces from Helmand to pave the way for the peace talks. My audience, that is the wrap-up of our top stories for today. For much more, you can check our website at www.watanelkarama.tv. Thanks very much for being with us. My greeting, Rانيا البليدى.